I'm just afraid I will be. Oh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Magical Witchy World TV. Tonight, we have a special panel. As you can see, all the lovely faces here with us on screen. So we have here to, let me go back to my other part. I'm sorry. I'm switching between things because I'm not the one that usually does the technical part. So forgive me. So tonight, we're very happy to have everyone here with us. And it's a panel that we're doing on sexual exploitations within groups, covens, temples, churches, etc. So hold on a moment, please.
Right.
I am.
And hopefully you guys can hear me fine, but we acknowledge that this is a
All right. So it's good to have everyone here. Hope everyone's happy to be here tonight with us. Everyone's been so enthusiastic about doing this with us. So we are quite happy to have them here. Okay. Rhonda?
yes. So welcome
Okay, maybe she didn't hear
everyone.
me.
Thank you for joining us in our panel. Happy welcome everyone for joining and thank you for joining us tonight in our panel. I apologize for the glitchiness of my laptop. That's why you're not hearing me when I start talking. But again, our topic is a very broad topic, and we know it can also be somewhat challenging, but we appreciate you all joining us on this for this conversation. Again, we wanted to bring in a diverse group of panelists, and we are going to also pay attention to what's happening in the chats. So if you have some topics for discussion or questions, people who are watching, if you have some topics of discussion, please do post them in the chat, and we'd like to bring them into our conversation tonight. All
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
Star.
Right. So we'll begin with a brief background info on why you have on our panelists and why they have something to contribute to this panel. And we'll begin with Edward Sott.
Yes, my name is Reverend Edward Saw. I'm an Alexandrian Wiccan high priest with over 55 years in the craft. I'm also the publisher of today's Witch magazine. And I have experience in this topic, being the fact is that I run a coven stead and an Alexandrian Wiccan coven, as
Absolutely.
well as the
Thank you.
Pagans' Rights
Oh,
Coalition.
sorry about that. Sorry.
As well as the Pagans' Rights Coalition.
Okay. Thank you, Edward. Janet?
I'm Janet Callahan. I've been around the community for about 30 years now, and I run a group in Southeast Michigan that is sort of family focused and very eclectic these days. But we've had some direct experience with some of these sorts of things in our community here. So
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Phoenix?
Hi, my name is Reverend Phoenix Coffin-Williams. I am the first priest of the Karelian Native tradition. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, and I help people heal from sexual exploitation, sexual trauma, and misuse on a regular basis. And I've also observed and heard about various things happening in our community and have been asked on many occasions to kind of weigh in and help provide insight and resolution when these things occur in our communities. And I will be addressing men specifically here, not because all men are the problem before y'all get at me, but like seriously, we are a part of the solution. So I will be talking to y'all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenya? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kenya T. Koviak. I am the Grove Mistress of the Black Moon Grove, which is a teaching grove. I have been in Michigan most of my life. I've been encountering all manner of shenanigans when it comes to this topic. And I have had to help fix and remove people from very negative situations. I wasn't trying to be the Captain Save person, but I really have been putting on that cape off and on.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Rhonda?
Hi, well, I'm Rhonda Allen,
Rhonda?
Northern New Jersey Tarot here in North. Yeah, I'm Rhonda Allen here in Northern New Jersey, Northern New Jersey Tarot, and one of the other half of Magickal Witchy World TV. I'm actually a sexual assault survivor, and so not as a particular part of the pagan or coven world, but I have been through my own experiences, like many others, and so this is
Okay.
and
All right. Rhonda's having a bit of
star.
issues. Okay. Thank you, Rhonda. And my name is Star Ravenhawk. I'm a reverend, a high priestess. I'm also the founder of the Academy of Pagan Studies, the Wiccan Family Temple. We're not a coven, we're just a temple. But we do run into things all the time. We hear about things a lot. And the people like me, they ask my opinion and how can they help, and I try to find resolutions. And as a child, my cousin and I escaped something before anything traumatic happened. We kicked butt, held hands, 8 and 9 year old, and run like hell. So
Mhm.
we all, I think, in some ways, we are all either know someone has been or heard of someone close by, which is just the way the reality is, and very sad about all of that. But here we are, and we were asked about this topic, and so here we are with it. All right, Rhonda, go ahead, sweetie.
So there's a fine line between sexuality and exploitation, as within certain traditions, the great rite can be performed between the high priest and high priestess as a consensual act. What are some of your thoughts on that particular practice? Who would like
If
to
I can
start that
chime in,
conversation? I see your hand going up, Reverend Sott. Yes.
I'd like
Reverend
to chime in
Sott,
on that.
yes.
Being Alexandrian Wiccan tradition, the Great Rite actually was established within the Gardnerian tradition as a practice that was done in the public eye of the coven, per se, by the high priest and high priestess back in the 1950s. However, Alex Sanders and had kind of readapted it to a more ceremonial practice of combining the chalice and the athame as a representation of the Great Rite, as a ceremonial representation of the Great Rite, in order to avoid any of the negative aspects of sexuality. Don't get me wrong, sex magic is a very strong, powerful magic,
Yeah.
uh, and it can be performed between consenting adults, and thus allowing for a higher level of energy raised in Kundalini force. But I, along with most traditions now, especially now in the modern times, we do not condone that act as a public act because there's a moral issue as well as a legal issue involved around it.
Mhm.
All
So
right.
that's why we use the ceremonial form of it, which is, like I said, the addition of the chalice and the athame as a representation of the Great Rite. Now,
Symbolically, yeah.
in private and magical practices, yes, sex magic is fine, totally acceptable within a private magical practice. I have no problem with that.
Right. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Phoenix.
I definitely believe that the Great Rite is a powerful and beautiful rite that helps us as Wiccans and pagans participate in the cycle of life and death and rebirth as is exemplified in the rest of nature. There's a place for it in our spirituality. There's a place for it in the training of up and coming clergy members. And I think that part of the issue that folks might have with the Great Rite is the shadow that they bring with them as converts from other, maybe Abrahamic faiths. And I think that the shadow that they
Mhm.
bring with them from other Abrahamic faiths leads to some of the problematic behaviors that we see when it comes to sexual exploitations and behaviors in our communities.
Hmm. Okay.
That is saying a great deal. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
for saying that.
Yeah.
Anyone
Kenya
else
or
have
Janet?
thoughts on that?
Okay, so I was trained. Most people don't know I'm actually initiated into a coven, but we don't really talk about that other than the Black Moon Grove. I'm an actual coven. Here's the thing. As I've been hearing so far in the discussion, there's a time and a place. 99% of the time, you're going to be doing the great rite symbolic, especially in public. However,
Right.
there are some politics involved in this that have come about. Sexual politics, sexual orientation, and gender expression politics have come into this. And that has infused itself into the conversation when it comes to spirituality. And because of that, we find, I shouldn't say we, I'm not the royal we, but I have found in conversation that instead of it being something that is not just about, celebrating the creativity, there's more to it behind that. I can't get into everything because some things I just can't say.
Right.
But in actuality, if you really look at it, these conversations that are being had now have gone so far afield to the simplicity and the agrarian nature of most craft and most religious paths that have to do with nature, that what they're for, what these rights are being lost.
Yeah.
It's not about,
Hmm.
can this person get pregnant when they're doing the great rite? Can two people of the same sexual anatomy do the great rite? It's not supposed to be about that. There's other
Mhm.
things involved here.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and what has happened is that it's become perverted. And I don't mean sexually perverted. I mean, as far as the intention has become
Right.
more so, let's do this because we have to do this, rather than let's find joy and let's celebrate this part of what we believe
Right.
because it's part of what makes us stewards of the magical part of this world.
Right. Right.
That was a
So
whole
Hmm.
lot. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, y'all.
Hmm.
no,
No,
actually,
those are excellent
you kind of
points.
opened
Excellent
you
points.
kind of you kind of opened a point that is interesting. But I would love to hear what Janet says first before Rhonda and I kick in. So Janet.
Um, I think that the way that most groups today are structured is so vastly different from the way that they would have originally been structured that it's just a different
Hmm.
conversation, right? It's not a community per se that is all together in one spot, that has like maybe a couple that's a leader. I have never been in a group where there was an actual couple with a relationship between them other than as friends,
Right.
where those two people were the leaders of a coven,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Awesome.
right? It's just I like that's the
Hmm.
thing I see a lot is that it's just a different conversation because we are using the structure that we were given, but we don't live in that community in that situation anymore.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
Rhonda,
Excellent.
I don't know about you, but I'm hearing two different things. One part is the political great right, and I'm calling it political because that's what I'm basically hearing. Yeah, it's become so political with the
Mm.
pronouns maybe or different things like that that it's missing the actual point of it, where it's not about the pronouns, it's about the fertility and what it was, but in terms of bearing literal, being able to bear fruit or to be fertile in as the earth normally generally is. But so I'm hearing that part,
Hmm.
but I'm also hearing the part about yes, and that's the symbolic part. But I'm also hearing about when we initially asked the question is about the consensual part of it, which I have I I have kind of I've seen the couples. They were not part of. I was not. I was never in a coven or anything like that. But at first, when I first came to New York, I was visiting different groups, and they would have their rituals, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a couple that will be there, and they'll all but do what they've got to do and everything else. And I just kind of go, okay, this is all cool. Not my type, but this is all cool. And I never went back because it's not me,
Hmm. Right.
publicly or anything like that. But they were an actual couple. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the issue that I saw when I was there, was that because if they are doing that, then others feel like they could turn to others there. And a lot of us did not know one another. And they may suggest things or be suggestive. And I'm like,
Mm.
I'm not that person. Don't even try me. But that's me. There might be others who are not
Yeah.
like me and assertive
Yeah.
enough to kind of go, touch me and you will break your I will break your arm. Don't touch me. So we'll be good, right?
Yeah.
That's my personality. Not everyone is like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's 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 part of something, and I don't know if it still goes on because I do not visit, I do not practice visiting other groups to see what they're doing or not doing, um because it's not my forte, it's not my
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think people have to understand,
Right.
one of the things that brought that kind of thing to the so-called craft initially, the true history of it was, especially say someone like the something like the Gardnerian tradition, for instance, whether they knew it or not, the tradition of the sexual act and in public and all those things was never a thing. It was brought in because he was a nudist and into the BDSM lifestyle, and he brought his lifestyle into his practice, and then went on from there saying this is what it is, and the initiation with the scourging, but it initially was not there. It just wasn't. Majority
So
of
I'm
them were so
hearing
far from each other.
there's
You know,
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Star. There's so many things that came out of everybody's comments. Um, but just to dive in and separate some of the things out. I hope you guys can hear me okay. Um, yes, we have the I don't want to say bastardization, but we have the disuse. We have the um you have people who are part of a coven or part of a group who are either, like you were saying about yourself, Star, at a place where they feel very comfortable saying no. And then those who are maybe new, perhaps feeling as though they have to, this is my high priest, this is my high priestess. I need
Right,
to do
right,
as they're instructing, I need to do as I'm being told. So you have all of that complication involved. And then as
right,
Janet was saying, you also have the fact that, and I think this is also what Kim was saying, you have the fact that things have shifted from let's say from, 40, 50 years ago to today, and the communities are not necessarily all physically within the same space. I actually was a member of a coven where the high priestess and acting high priest were a couple, they were married. But it was still a ritual practice of athame and chalice for the great rite. There was no physical
right,
act
right,
going on. But but there's so many different things that have come out of it. So my questions become, how has the great rite, or will the great rite, I'm curious to know what communities or coven communities are doing with this practice. Have they brought it up to, I'm going to say 2024, to meet the needs of their current community as it stands today? Is there something that needs to be looked at? With Nothing for me is ever static. Process of becoming, or so for me it's a living practice. What are we doing about that? And I've heard the stories too, and we've heard the stories of past abuses, etc. So the question becomes,
yeah,
you know, how are we, what are we doing? Because it's not the way it, things are not always the way they were, right? You know what I'm saying?
right,
So
right.
what are we
I
doing
think most of
today?
them,
And we do have several people
yeah,
on the topic. Evening all. Interesting.
Okay. All right. I think for a lot of people, honestly, the great rite is being symbolic with the chalice and the athame. I think that's
Mhm.
even with us, with our temple, we do it like that. We've never practiced it
Yes.
anything differently, and we don't do sky cloud. Um,
If I
and
may,
again, when those things that I saw, they were like way back when I first came to New York, back in the early '80s. I have not been to those things to see anything since then, so I can't speak to that. If it was brought forward, and I don't know, covens are very closed knit, so I've heard things with certain covens, that people have said that they have actually witnessed, and it was not. It's kind of horrific. Um,
Mhm.
again, they're close knit, so I don't know. Anybody
Mhm.
else has any input on that?
I have, I do have some input, if I may. One of the things that I've
And
seen
then
over the
Miss
course of the
Phoenix.
many years in the craft that I have seen an evolution of methodology, an evolution of traditions, an evolution of covens, and changes.
Mhm.
First of all, one of the things that I've noticed is that there's no longer considered, even within a coven situation, a case of a married couple running a coven, so forth like this. Now there's more outside people, not even couples, running covens together, and they
Yeah.
become a brotherhood and sisterhood. Now this brings the moral standing into
Mhm.
point. As a brother and sister, you do not in, uh, indulge in sexual content. It's a moral thing. And
Mhm.
if people start recognizing each other as brothers and sisters in the craft, right, then that is the way that it should be maintained
Right. Right.
as a
Any?
brotherhood and sisterhood in the
Mhm.
craft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, now
Mhm.
this is um, Melissa just said should not serve what the public entailed, never seen a great right in public, only in closed covens by coven members only, with consenting adults. That is past. That has been. That's something I mentioned earlier. That I have seen that in consensual covens, and especially in the Alexandrian, Gardnerian, Wiccan traditions. However, um,
Mhm.
the thing about it is, it has to be never in public, and that's why Alexander's developed the whole thing with the chalice athame and symbolic rate, right? Um, the whole thing is with covens, like I said, it's a brotherhood and sisterhood because there's so many diverse people in a coven
Mhm.
situation. It's not just one person. There's so many different people and types. I don't see where sexuality has any involvement in the craft in that regard.
Right. Right.
On a personal level, yes, fine.
Right.
Sex magic,
Right.
by all means.
Okay.
But on a craft coven group
Right.
ceremony, no
Absolutely.
has no involvement with it and should not have any involvement.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Phoenix, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. When it comes to the idea of brotherhood and sisterhood, and these people not doing the great right with each other, I find that people will do what they want to do despite the titles that they give each other. And they will use the fact that Apollo and Diana were brother and sister, and they will use the fact that Zeus and Hera were brother and sister. They will, use the fact that these
Mhm.
deities were related and being with each other and having children with each other, engaging in the great right with each other. So people will do what they want to
Mhm.
do, and they will use whatever they want to justify it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that I want to point out is that I've been to multiple festivals that were clothing optional, and were family oriented, in which people would engage in ritual together, and the folks who wanted to do the great rite with each other were free to do that at the conclusion of the ritual as a way of sanctifying their participation, their energy, and their own intentions. So I do see the great rite still happening in a very real, very physical, intimate sense between people who actively use that in their spirituality, in their relationships, in their
Right.
brotherhood or sisterhood or what have you.
Right. Right. Anybody else?
Mhm.
So Kenya. Oh, yes, Kenya. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you said people actually use that, and I'm referring to Reverend
Mm.
Phoenix Coffin-Williams, I'm gonna keep doing that till I get your name and get it flowing out. properly. Okay. Um, you're saying use that. Are we talking about when people use the combined fluids for later magic from that? You know what? Let me back up. Let me back up and leave that alone because I'm really close to a line right now. And I don't want to cross that line where I say something I'm not supposed to say. So I'm gonna back up. But let's talk about something else. We're talking about exploitation tonight, and so far this has been a really positive conversation. So let me just throw in the grenade into the conversation and talk about something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that I'm not going to say where, but I teach at a certain location, and I see an underage young lady who is exploring her way toward the craft. When I say underage, I mean very far before we hit 16. Underage. Okay. No, I'm not teaching her that much. I'm just teaching her a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. And
Right.
my fear is that what's going to happen is she's going to fall into the clutches of some group, some Svengali kind of, young man or young lady in high school that's going to say, "Ooh, you want to do the great right? Let's conjure." I can see it happen. I can see it. She's so sweet. She's so trusting. And I'm just trying to knock all that trusting and sweetness right up out of her and tell her the craft is beautiful. It's lovely. It's wonderful. You don't have to use your body as coin to access this world. And that's what I'm worried about for younger people.
Right.
Right. And we know it has happened.
Yeah.
I'll tell
And
you straight up, it has happened because I used to get a lot more of the emails of people asking me what should they do, and some of it was me telling them to tell their parents. They were afraid to even tell their parents. It's me telling them to, if not the parents, and they want me to call someone or to get them a lawyer in their area or different people, and I've done that. So I understand where Reverend Edward was talking about, but the brother and sister thing we can't say like that because we know within families we see step parents molesting or even the own parent molesting their children. So the brother and sister thing is, yes, it's a nice set of words, but people cross the line and you would never even know it. The
People
brother
cross
and
the line regard.
no, no,
People
no.
cross the
I'm.
line regardless.
Let me say what I'm saying though, because I understand where you're coming from with it. But I'm saying you're putting people in groups together that no matter what you say, they're not blood related, and even if blood related people have done damage to other blood related people, so it leaves a wide open gap there for a lot of things to happen that we think we have under control. I and for me, it's the reason I refuse to have in any way a coven. I refuse to run it like a coven, and I strictly state within whatever. If there are anyone underage, I tell them do not show up without your parent. I want a parent or a guardian there. I want them to see and know what's going on at all times. I am not going to be held responsible because if anything happens when I'm not looking or whatever, I want those people there looking out for that person that's there that's underage or anything like that. They're not allowed to come without some sort of a representation, adult representation. And I don't mean their little sister that's or their big brother, or I meant the adult.
That part.
That is what I do because I am not for it.
Right.
I do not want to see it. I've heard too many things, and we have to step up as elders to not just say the words because it's not kumbaya. That's not the way the world is. If adult males or females can, as parents, molest their own children, it's open season on anybody else, and we cannot say kumbaya. It's just, to me, closing our eyes to the
So that's
possible.
true. There's no question
We
about
may not do those
le-
things, but others are.
I'm not closing
yeah.
my eyes
I just
to
want
it.
to follow up with Reverend
I'm
Sod.
not trying to. I wasn't trying to gap it. I'm saying there's a moral standard that we need to
No, I
maintain,
understand.
and
I'm not saying no.
Mhm.
I'm not
and
saying no. I agree with you. We do have that moral standards and everything, but
we
reality,
need to maintain it. I busted a coven out in Canada back in 1992 that was actually not only molesting children, but actually formed a whole church that was trafficking thing, and it was discovered by a lawyer within our group, my teaching group, and he informed me of it. And then we turned around and literally had to go through the Canadian Mounted Police. We went through Interpol and everything else to get this to break down this church. It was within our
Right.
own community. Now, the thing about it is, like I said, so I am totally dead set against this in our community. We see it enough in the Judaic churches, and we see it enough in the Catholic Church as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we do not need it in the pagan community.
Absolutely not.
So
Absolutely.
I'm fully advocating
Right,
with you,
right.
Star, in regards to the fact is
No,
what
no,
we
no. I
need to
understand
do.
that. I understood
What we
that.
need to do is,
Right.
in the event that we should see anything outside of a proper moral code or standing within our society, period, that's illegal, report it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk
Yeah.
to an elder. Talk
Absolutely.
to elders. Take the responsibility of contacting the authorities. Take the responsibility of getting counseling for the thing, providing counseling for
Get
the
them help.
victim,
Absolutely.
etc.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
And we
and I
should be
think
doing
that
that.
becomes a part of that's a part of, and this is, and I again, I am not currently in a coven, but I have been part of a coven, um, and was part for several years. Having said that, I think it becomes a question because of the nature of the work and the history and blah 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 blah. We have to consider some of the, well, I'm going to use the, trying to legalities of it, but perhaps it is a part of the conversation when people are joining. I'm throwing this out there because clarity, whether it's an underage person or an adult who is easily manipulated. I'm going to use that language because it
Yeah.
happens.
Yes.
Those things
Absolutely.
need to be upfront and and discussed long before somebody takes an oath to commit to a tradition or path or what have you. I just think
Yeah.
that maybe that becomes a part of the conversation. On to our
Absolutely.
next question, though. We had some other really cool questions that
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
coming through.
So
So,
so it,
Star.
it, it kind of lines into the next part because that whole power dynamic that with sexual interactions being non-consensual by nature. I mean, we kind of touched a little bit on it, but I wanted to kind of have you guys bring that up, and the fact that it can happen with both males and females, because even Phoenix mentioned that before, that it could happen with both male and female. We're not saying only male, we're saying both. It happens because
Hmm.
I know for a
Yeah.
fact it did. The woman
Yes.
who did it, the priestess, has now passed on. But what came out of it, people did tell me of those things, but they were adults, but they still felt
Hmm.
like they to be that priest within her coven, they had to have relations with her. The power dynamics of it.
Hmm.
And I know they did not want to, but they did because they felt that. But they were adults. I'm like, you're still an adult, and you can still make decisions. So it's entirely up to you. That was all I said, and I walked away.
Hmm.
None, yeah, none my business,
Hmm.
kind of a thing. If you are an adult
Hmm. Hmm.
over 30 and you cannot say no, I don't know how to help you, because you have to be able to say no yourself at those ages.
Yeah, but a lot of them are not. A lot of
Yeah,
people are not empowered, and they need that assistance. Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a really phenomenal example. And I would contend that if there is an imbalance of power, then it's not a matter of actually being consensual. Now,
right.
you are a grown up adult for sure. And so perhaps the law might look at that differently. But within our circles, if one person has more power over the other person, that is not an equal relationship. And an invitation for sexual conduct is not consensual there. It's not legit.
Yeah,
If they
it's not. It's
underage,
Correct.
not.
you
Well
should
said.
not be approaching them at all. If you are a high priest or a high priestess or a member of the high clergyhood and you're working with a second degree, that is not consensual. That is inappropriate. Right?
Right.
At
Correct.
that level, it's just theory, it's just reading, it's just getting to know
Yes.
the principles if you are going to be engaging in that kind of teaching. You're not asking somebody who is not absolutely equal with you to engage in sex.
Correct.
As you mentioned that, it occurred to me with something, and we had to have that person leave our temple. The thing about it is, it reminds me of, when the police leave, they did some bad in another police station and they leave and they go to another police station. No one tells anybody that, they left because of this, and this.
Hmm.
Right.
And we need,
Mm.
I think that's something that should be held accountable. We, as pagan elders or whomever in whatever tradition, we should be able to, I don't know, privately as elders have something where anybody that's coming from one group to another, I would reach out to the person or the groups that from before and ask, why did
Mhm.
they leave your group? Because they could come and tell you anything. It does not mean that's true. Because I don't know
Right.
about other groups. I don't know about other groups, but I document everything and I keep it, because I always say, in case of legalities in the future, I will have it where the conversation and everything, and I keep the person's name, the date, everything, and I write it down, because I know they're going to leave and go to that other group and tell different stories about what occurred.
Mhm.
I'm just
Mhm.
saying.
Janet's got
It's
her hand up.
important.
I got mine up.
Janet, you were
Go
saying.
ahead, Janet.
The thing is, though, it's not just groups, right? It's not just covens, it's not just temples.
Yep.
It's every event. It's everything from the coffee nights to
Yep.
the
Mm.
festivals to whatever.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
every one of us, I would bet you, knows somebody in our community, in our local community that we see on a fairly regular basis, who we
Mhm.
know behaves inappropriately. And who we know, if we saw them with a certain kind of person, we would pull that person aside and say, hey, this person is not safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't say those things out loud enough,
Right. We don't.
That's an
right?
excellent point.
It's
That's,
always
yeah.
a secret. It's something you whisper to somebody else, and eventually it gets around those people that are. But we struggle with how to handle
How to
those
approach
situations
it.
because
Yeah,
we're
we do.
trying so hard to be fair and we're trying to be just and hard to be
Mhm.
inclusive. And we have to understand
Mm.
that that bubble of we're gonna let everybody in only lasts as long as they are willing to live with the rules of the community. And when we let that
Right.
stuff get by, we're saying that's
Mhm.
okay in our community,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
right? Rules are not what you say, they're what you do. If you tell your kid,
Well
no, you
said.
can't have ice cream for dinner every night, and tomorrow they ask for ice cream for dinner and you give them ice cream, what do they learn? They learn that that's the rule. You
That they can
said the
just
Yeah.
rule
ask.
was no
Yeah.
ice cream, but that's not what they hear. That's not what they see. That's not what they
Right.
experience.
Right. Yeah.
Phoenix,
Rules
you
are
have
what
your
we
hand up
do.
again? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of what Janet said. Very powerful. When I'm
Mhm.
speaking specifically to men, males, XY chromosome having people, when I think about 1 in 4 women on a college campus being a victim of a completed or attempted sexual assault, this lets me know that men, you either are a predator or you know one. And so if you
Mhm.
are not one and you know one, exactly what are you doing to keep these monsters accountable for what they are doing in our world? Why are we
Yep.
standing up for them? Why are we being quiet when we know what's happening? We know the
Right.
jokes that these comrades tell in private conversations. We know how they refer to women and their bodies. We know how they objectify our sisters and our mothers. So, what exactly is the
Mhm.
benefit that we get from keeping quiet? It's us trying to keep our place in a rotten patriarchy. And so that's the thing
Right.
that
Mm.
really needs to be attacked hardcore. We do not need
Right.
to
Yes.
stand up for people doing bad things if we know for certain we would never perpetrate them.
Right. Right.
Well
Absolutely.
said.
Edward.
I know.
Edward.
I want to clarify
And
something
then
that
Kenya.
I heard from Reverend Phoenix, but also I want to specify something in particular. I recently, not too long ago, and Star, you were on the panel, I believe, that I had on my show
Mm-hmm.
regarding bad and good covens and no cults and differentiation
Mm.
between what a cult and a coven is, because we've been often accused of being cultists
Mm.
in the craft.
Right.
And the thing about it is, one of the things that has been mentioned in regards to that is that if the leader is a guru, all dynamic, all knowing, all seeing, etc., so forth, then that person is not, and that is a cult, not a coven.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
A coven.
unfortunately, yeah, it does become that.
So if you are looking for a coven, or you're seeking a coven, or you're seeking a group environment, right? You want to make sure that the leaders are equal in proportion with each other, that they do not sit there and one dominates another, because the dominate trait is what causes a lot of this. The
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
domination of a thing, it causes a lot of it, and the thing about it is, it's not necessary. And I totally agree with Reverend Kaufman. You said that no one should cross the line of sex. Period.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the craft is not about sex. It's about creation. Yes.
Yes.
It's about the agrarian and procreation forces, yes, but it's not about sex. If you take the craft as anything else but what it actually is, then you've lost your perspective of it, and you haven't got a clue. And if you're a leader, you damn sure have lost your perspective, and us other leaders need to address you on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We need to
Mm-hmm.
police our
Yep.
own selves too.
But one of the things I have to say, because following up on everything that you guys just said, some of the elders, as people have in the community, um, I understand that men majority of the times does it, but when it comes to the pagan community or the craft or witchy community, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women that prey on them.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Oh
witnessed
yeah.
it, and they will prey on both men and women. And one of them, we had to say, we can't do this anymore. You've got to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
And that's
it's everything about them is too sexually oriented, and it's not like that. This
mm-hmm.
is not, we're not saying sex is bad. Absolutely not. I enjoy it to the next person. I'm just simply saying, you're an elder, act like it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Do not take, because you're talking about power dynamics. It's like me being charge of my temple.
That's it.
But
Yeah.
at no time do I ever abuse those privileges of whatever. Then the only time I overrule or do anything is when I see something going wrong. And that's when
Right.
I step in and I'm like, okay, the hammer comes down. I'm done. We're done. Nothing more to discuss.
I just want to grab
As
Kenya
Melissa
and get her feedback real quick.
Yeah.
Kenya, you've had your hand up.
Okay, so I won't make this long, but I just want to get this point out. And this is going to sound really like, I don't know,
Just
I'm
say it, girl.
54. It's going to sound older. Here we
That's okay.
go. So here's the thing. One of the issues that we're running into is that instead of quote unquote covens or circles or kinnings, we are finding that, like other religious groups in the dominant culture, like school systems and everything else, things are becoming corporate that don't need to be corporate. Things are becoming about protocol that don't need to be about protocol per se. One of the biggest things I've seen is that people are so caught up in structure rather than purpose. If it's not fit for purpose, it will not work. If people are, and there are power dynamics within the coven, I'm not going to say there's not, but
Okay.
a healthy coven, a healthy one, doesn't meet just for the sake of meeting. You meet to
Mm-hmm.
have joy. You meet to worship in whatever way you worship, work in whatever way you work. And it used to be, it wasn't about, oh, so and so's cool, let's bring you into the coven. No, you got to know that person. That thing about being properly prepared, I'm not Gardnerian, I'm not going to get into that. But I'm saying there's a reason that's there. This is supposed to be like a family. Here we go on my soapbox. Boom. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be with these people ideally for a very long time, getting together, sharing spiritual energies, spiritual teachings. And yes, if they're under 18 and it's a family style coven, you're not going to share everything with the under 18-year-olds. And no,
Mm-hmm.
sex is not the primary reason, but there are 8 paths, and sex is part of that path. But it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
necessarily be every single time you meet up when there's kids there. It's about judgment, it's about rationality, it's about knowing when and where things need to happen. And
Mhm.
part of that is to know whether or not the people, here we go, that are in charge or in positions of power may be hypnotherapists. Because
Mhm.
sometimes people are a little bit unethical and they use their
Yeah.
training unethically. And I've seen it happen. Okay, I've seen it happen. That's number one. Number two, if they are doctors, psychologists, psychotherapists, again, they may misuse their training, their learning on other coven members. You have to be very, very vigilant about how the coven is healthy. If it's healthy, if it's organic, it should be as egalitarian yet have a leader as the same way as a herd of deer.
Mhm. 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 I like that. Listen, I'm just going to time check us because it is 10 minutes to 11. We've had 50 minutes of this conversation and only gotten
Okay.
through like two questions. It's
Okay.
great, but
So,
I have to give us a time check on that. It's been
okay.
fabulous. Go ahead, Star.
Oh, I thought you okay. One of the things we want to also to tap on is to um that creative. I think Phoenix was the one who brought that up about the creative way of obtaining consent, and also learning to accept rejection as a demonstration of the mature masculine, but also please add on that feminine because I've witnessed the feminine part so much. My
Mhm.
son from very young was became a protector of our group circle all the time, and it was a natural thing. Anybody that he thought was predatorial, like, I don't know what his instincts were, but he used it. He will step right in front of whatever that female was and go, "Hello, how can I help you?" to the guy. He was not playing.
Mhm.
And every single time the women were like, "Don't come around us because Darian will get you. He will not play with you. And as small as he may look, he was tall and skinny, he will hurt you. So don't step to
Mhm.
every one of the women that were with us. He thought of them as family. So to him, do not step to them just like that. And he did that automatic. Just saying. Both male and females, he did that with.
Melissa Anderson said
So, what
leaders
are
are
some
teachers,
ways?
servants, and no authority figures over anybody, and that's exactly the point. We are teachers, servants, and no authorities.
Right. That is
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely true. And yes,
So
lots thank you, Melissa, for all the comments in the chat. We appreciate that. But
okay.
what are some ways to creatively obtain consent and ways to accept rejection?
Yes.
You know,
Okay,
I mean,
Phoenix.
Mm,
these are
You take it over, boy.
Yeah.
yes.
You put the baby powder on the hand, right? Oh, let me stop. We're not talking about that. Just
It
saying,
is
sometimes you
absolutely
gotta get it through to them.
it is absolutely necessary to obtain consent for everything that you want to do with someone else who's a part of your community. And like I said
Yeah.
before, you cannot get consent from someone who does not have equal power and stature and standing as you. So that
Absolutely.
is one of the things that you have to creatively be aware of. Is the
Mhm.
person that I'm interested in, is the person that I'm eyeing, is that person on equal footing with me? If you
Yes.
know for a fact that the person that you are looking at has less power than you, it's a no go. If also you know that the person that you are looking at has more power than you, it is also a no go, and you should not be asking any of your elders or teachers to have any kind of sexual, great right, dating, any of these kind of experiences. Right? Like
Mhm.
those people are they're off the chopping block until you're equals.
Mhm.
You can ask for dates, right? You can ask to get to know someone in a more personal kind of way before you even explore whether or not it's appropriate to go down that path. You
Mhm.
can ask for people to meet you at libraries. You can ask for people to meet you at public events. You can ask people to come to games with you, like baseball, football, basketball, any of these things that are outside of the magical community that takes you outside of that kind of space, so to speak, is a great place
Mhm.
to explore who this person actually is. As you vet them, ask yourself these questions. Are you okay with how these people act in the real world? If you
Right.
take someone out to dinner because you're interested in getting to know them on a sexual level, even if it's spiritually and it's a part of like your craft training and practice. If you take them out to dinner and you notice that they're behaving like pretty awfully towards the wait staff, like, is this someone that you still want to engage with on this level? If you are out with this person and you hear them making insensitive jokes about the abilities of other people, is this still someone that you want to engage with on this level? You got to find out who these people are in multiple contexts before you ask them, or before you even give an answer to a question about having sex, participating in the great rite, or going down that road.
Right.
And just
Right.
because you get to a place where you ask doesn't mean that they're going to say yes. You might think that you are awesome. You might think that you have a lot to offer. You might think that the experience is phenomenal. And the answer can still be no. Because you're equals, that means you do not have a right to expect a yes or any answer whatsoever. It can be no, it can be maybe, it could be, I got to think about it a little bit. It can be, I'm not too sure about you yet, so let me see how I feel about things before we go down this road. You have to be okay with every single possible answer if you're going to be brave enough to ask to begin with.
Right.
If there is a consequence for a no, if there's a consequence for a maybe, if there's a consequence for anything other than an affirmation, you are a predator. You cannot penalize people for telling you no.
Well
Absolutely.
said. These are all conversations that fit, whether it's pagan or just life in general. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I am going to have to put a hard stop at us right now, because unfortunately we have run out of time. It is amazing that we barely got into it, and we have some really good questions left. So I'm going to
I
ask if we can go ahead, Star.
no, I was gonna say there was one that I think we could kind of quickly um, talk about really quickly, even if for
Okay, what is
five
that
minutes
one?
or so. The one about BDSM culture coming into the so-called craft,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
or that whole bodily autonomy and religion mix kind of a thing
Mhm.
that was
Mhm.
mentioned, and that I have heard that a lot from people, because they would just certain things that they would say. So anybody has a comment on that?
I have a comment after, but I'll,
Okay,
I'll wait.
go ahead, Phoenix, or Janet, or Kenya.
I definitely think that you can make your BDSM practice sacred, but it has to fall in that purview of you doing it on purpose. Are you doing it with people you trust? Is it consensual? I will say that being a Black person practicing Wicca and paganism, where a lot of my people around me are Caucasian and white, none of y'all are whipping me 3 times 3, 7, 21, any amounts of times. None of y'all are whipping me. You're not doing it. It's not a thing.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. You have to be
And
into that thing. You have to
right.
be into those things, and I'm not either, so I understand.
And at initiations, we do request that our candidates be blindfolded at first. That's a
Mhm.
thing. And within that purview, you got to let them know before you even put the blindfold on. No one's going to be touching you in any weird ways. I'm going to
Yeah.
whisper in your ear, hey, can I grab your arm and lead you into the ritual space? Right? That's
Yeah.
an
Except for
added
the
level of
sword.
Except
righto.
what?
Oh, never mind.
um but these, when you put a blindfold on someone, that is an added level of vulnerability, and you
Yeah.
as a
Yes.
leader have to be mindful of that, especially if the majority of the
Uh-huh.
people that you are with are women or female or femme presenting. It's very likely that someone has tried to perpetrate on them at some point. You got to be mindful of that and let them know, hey, you can only expect to be touched on your arm or on your shoulder after I ask you to do it.
Right.
Consensual. Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
can
Right.
you can celebrate BDSM in the craft because there are mythologies that talk about things happening to our divinities that
Mhm.
seem very dangerous or very painful, but it was really in service of them getting a greater thing that they were looking for. You know what
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
saying?
Mhm.
So to emulate that can be absolutely spiritual. and it's got to be
Right.
up to you by yourself. Like that originates in here. No one else can put that in you and say, "Hey, BDSM." Right? It's got to come
Right.
Right.
within first, like the charge of the goddess says.
Right. Right.
One
Right.
of the things I do have to admit I have seen, and I kind of know
Mhm.
where this question was coming from. Some people in our community have said it over and over. Basically, witches are always into BDSM and all those things. I have actually heard that out of the mouths of some people. And I've had to sit there and go, what the hell?
That yeah.
First of
That
all,
that,
my
that
to me, the never the twain shall meet. What you have as your kinks and all those things, unless it's a particular thing you guys have decided beforehand about, you'll keep your kink at home with whomever you wish to do. No one needs to know any of that. What you practice as your spirituality and your religion, that's a totally different thing. And you asking me that does not mean I have to tell you, because I don't tell you, I'm vanilla. And they say that I've literally heard people say and do that or put them down for being vanilla. And I'm like,
yeah.
things came out of my mouth. Things came out of my mouth at that time, and I wanted to bitch slap people and stuff like that. I'm like, stop. Keep your things in one place. This is not what we have, and we are the Wiccan family temple. There are kids from in the stomach being pregnant and up. You do not bring
Mhm.
that into this. And they have
That
tried. Many have done that, and they actually say and think that witches are all into that. And not everyone is. Everybody
yeah.
has
That
their snake and all the different things, but keep it at home with your
oh,
partner
very. I
or
love
some.
that, Melissa.
I'm with you, Star.
Melissa says,
With you on that because I said it myself. Within my coven, what you do in your bedroom is your business. What we do in in this temple, in this coven, is coven business.
Right.
Keep them separate because the fact the bottom line is it ain't happening here.
I
Okay,
think what
Kenya.
happens is a lot of
Oh, sorry.
people. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kenya.
Okay, so I understand there's something called sacred kink. I've heard of it. I want to acknowledge it in this conversation.
Mhm.
There, it's acknowledged. Keep it at home. Keep it for adult night. No, I'm
Mhm.
just saying, keep it for adult
Yeah.
night. But it also comes down to what kind of coven structure you have, because there are covens that are kink based covens. That's part of their ritual. So really, it
Mhm.
comes down to know where you're going, know who you're going to be
Yeah.
with, know what you all are coming together to do. No pun intended. But I'm just
Mhm.
saying, you want to make sure everybody's on the same page. You caught that, didn't you?
Right.
Omegaverse, I said it. Okay. Anyway, but I said I was going to say it tonight. But seriously, it's gotten to the point where the terminology and the jargon and the cultures have twisted together. And it's not recent. It happened around the 60s and 70s. And I get that. Woo, watch out now. My phone fell.
Mm.
My phone fell. I got irritated.
Okay.
I got irritated.
Actually, I'm going to correct you a little bit. It began in the 50s. That's when it
I
began.
know. I know it did. I know it did because I'm not going to get into my lineage. We're not getting ready to start,
I know, I
chanting
know,
lineage.
I know,
But
I
I'm just
know.
saying, we're not gonna be singing. But I'm just saying, oh, I'm talking too much. I'm talking too much. Anyway, so what I am saying is this. What I am saying is this. I should not be going to a pagan event,
Mhm.
and you are in your kink fetish wear for a
Mhm.
public ritual, and
Mhm.
you're
Yes.
making it about that when you're calling a quarter,
Mhm.
and you're doing it based in that, and nobody else is doing it.
Right.
Read the room. And where is the summoner? Where are the summoners at? Y'all should be telling everybody what's going on with these individuals. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna calm down and I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna let it go. Let it go.
You are on to you're saying all the right stuff though,
All
Kenya.
right.
I was just
Okay.
gonna say the piece that gets me about the notion of BDSM culture coming into the craft or whatever else. I'm going to say this. Part of it is because it is now so popular in the popular culture, being pagan, being Wiccan, practicing craft. It's very popular. And so now you have this crossover of a lot of things. It's the witch, it's the mystery, it's the darkness, it's the things and all of that. Now I don't want to say vices, what's the word? All the things that are quote unquote forbidden are now
Taboo
I
and
can
everything
step
else.
into that.
Salacious.
All the taboos, right. I can step into that and, oh, witchcraft is the taboo, and so I can bring that. So it's the blending and it's the confusion. It's not, and I don't mean to say it's all Walt Disney, but I'm just saying it's the performance art of it. It's more performance at that point. That person who shows up in their club wear, their BDSM wear, their whatever, showing up at to call a quarter at an open ritual, that's performance. That's not, as in my estimation, a person who is there to do that work. They're there for the performance piece, for the titillation piece, be in the forbidden. And that has to be that clarity. There needs to be conversation. We're not here to do performance art. We're here to do work. And that's a whole big other thing. That's an
Yeah.
issue.
It's about what's
But yeah, sex
appropriate.
magic
It's
is
about
great
what's
magic.
appropriate, and
And
pick your time, pick your
if it's in
place.
the appropriate
Yeah.
realm, hey, right. Precisely
Go
so.
for it in the
Precisely so.
appropriate realm. But
Anyway,
outside of that. All right.
exactly.
Any last words that anybody wants to say before we um, start closing up on that part? Because I do have to admit, I want to try to see if we can quickly do the astrology for those who this is
And
the
I'm
last part.
Melissa.
We want to make sure they get it. So, who said that they wanted to say something? Janet, Kenya, Edward,
Yeah.
Phoenix? Okay. All right, everyone. We want to thank you all for being with us here tonight. We really appreciate that. Your words, your thoughts, and all your insights are so appreciated because it's things that people have been asking about. If anyone has um, anything like that happening to them, please know that you're not alone. There are places you can call. You can contact any of us and reach out to us or anyone else and get help that you may need. Or if
Mhm.
you're underage, please reach out to your parents. If you don't feel like they are going to do the right thing, always know that there are people who are concerned and are willing to help. All right. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone in the chat. Melissa, I love the conversation. Daryl, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And if I can get over to my design screen, I'm going to try and do this star. I'm going to
Okay.
try.
I would
I'm going to
appreciate it. Okay.
try. It's
Okay, so
it's not
we're gonna
responding.
and all of you can stay either in the back or you can listen in. But I want to see if we can quickly do the astrology for the last three signs because last month we did not do theirs, and they're not going to be happy if we just skip them again this month. So I want to do that.
It's true. True. I don't think I'll be able to do it. I'm trying to get to that screen, but oh,
Okay, you got it, or should I?
maybe. Hey, sponsors. I'm gonna try it. Hold on. Here we go. No.
Okay, I'll do it then.
Giving it
Okay,
a shot.
so which one is the sponsor one?
I got it.
Okay, so Rhonda, did you do it or did I? Okay, maybe I. All right. So we promised you guys, and we're going to do it for the last three signs: Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Your astrology for the month of August. So tonight, we're going to find out what's in store for you all. So, beginning with Capricorn, your monthly affirmation: I make wise and informed decisions about how I invest my energy. Did you hear that? I make wise and
Yeah.
informed decisions about how I invest my energy. The summer sun is shining out, sort of, kind of, right? Yeah, it was like crazy today. But your Capricorn horoscope
Mhm.
for August 2024 is pulling you underground, challenging you to explore the depths of your desires so that you can soar to your most aspirational heights. The new moon on August 4th had asked you to get vulnerable, but to still maintain strong boundaries. Then Mercury retrograde had you checking in on your worldview and making any necessary adjustments that you had to make. Many of your default answers to questions that were there for you to be placed, a lot of those questions had you about your beliefs are no longer relatable, as you may have evolved further along than you thought, especially during the Mercury chasm that peaked about mid month or so. You've been doing a lot of soul searching this month, but when that full moon landed in your money sector on August 19th, it had you applying all those inner values to your external world. So, do a check in on your finances and other material resources right about now and see what adjustments need to be made. Okay? Ignoring issues will only make things more stressful in the long run. Once the sun entered fellow earth sign Virgo on August 22nd, you kind of shook off some of that full moon intensity and embarked on some exciting new adventures. It's time to broaden your perspective and try something new. You'll never know the heights you can reach if you don't take a chance. All
Right
right? That's a
on.
good one for you guys.
On to Aquarius. Now, your monthly affirmation is I attract people who love me and I learn from people who don't. Again, I attract people who love me and I learn from people who don't. Dig deep because your Aquarius horoscope for August 2024 is challenging you to evolve your relationships. It's time to let go of the old to make room for the new. Leo season lit up your partnership zone, and the new moon on August 4th helped you to make meaningful commitments to others with confidence and on a deeper, much deeper level. The Mercury retrograde that started back then, after that new moon, had you reevaluating your personal boundaries and sort and to help you and helped you sort through any tangled emotional webs that were that were weighing down your psyche. By mid-month, sorry, I am tongue-tied. By mid-month, your relationships were pulled into that retrograde mix in a more tangible way. And it's good to keep up the momentum though. And past that this most recent full moon, this powerful lunation took place in your sign, Aquarius. So it's going to keep pushing you to ditch anything and everything that no longer feels true to you. Shed your old skins and make it's going to help you shed your old skins and make you feel unstoppable. Once this retrograde wraps up, coming up on the 28th, so just a few days away, you'll feel more comfortable getting vulnerable in your relationship and more capable of working through any resentments that bubbled up from underneath the surface over the last few weeks.
All right. So now we're on to the last sign, okay? Pisces, your monthly affirmation is I prioritize my tasks effectively and I have faith in my progress. Again, I prioritize my tasks effectively and I have faith in my progress. Being productive is never easy when a Mercury retrograde period starts kicking up some chaos, as it will throughout this month. But your Pisces horoscope for August 2024 will bring you the energy that you need to make some serious progress in your life. The new moon on August 4th was one of the best times for you to get things done all month. So hope you did some of that, just that, slayed some of your to-do list ahead of the retrograde. Planet Venus joined Mercury in your relationship zone at the same time. So you may have found yourself sorting through past disagreements or miscommunications in love. But Venus, that planet, also brought a sense of harmony that helped you keep the peace.
Mhm.
Some intense cosmic clashes will be activating tough love planet Saturn in your sign about mid-month, which just passed. So you'll be challenged to stand firm in your boundaries and figure out what's worth investing in, whether that's a relationship, a job, or a personal goal.
Hmm.
Under the full moon that just passed on August 19, you did realize the answers was within you. You didn't have to go outside searching for it anywhere else. And after that Aquarian super full moon's intense lunation, coupled with some of the retrograde shakeups in your relationships earlier in the month, the last week of August will feel like a breath of fresh air. Communicating your deepest feelings feels a lot easier now, and you'll be able to focus more effectively on what's coming up in your closest relationships or partnership of any
Hmm.
kind. So keep that in mind. All
Right
right.
on. So, well, let's try and pull up one card at least, right? Just
Yes,
one
yes. Let's
card.
just go ahead and do it. All righty. So, what do you want that one card to be for?
So we just moved into that sign. We were just talking about it. We moved into that Virgo. We're in Virgo season now. Amazing but true. Every time I think of Virgo, aside from the fact that it is the sign of Virgo, Venus, goddess of love, but I also think about all the strengths of Virgo with organizing and putting things in some sense of order. And we were just wrapping up our full moon and we were looking at what was the thing that we really needed to focus on, that last little thing we needed to focus on to push through with our full moon. Now let's draw a card just to say, what is the thing that we need to be focused on and organize? What do we need to focus on and organize? Because we're moving into, swiftly, hate to say it, but we're moving out of summer into fall soon.
Isn't
So
it
let's look at what,
amazing? It's moving so
yeah,
fast. It's moving so
so
fast.
fast. So let's just look at what's that thing that we really need to focus on and organize right now that needs
Okay,
some
so let's see what
attention.
we got. That laughter just sounded really off.
Yes, I got the death card. What do I need to focus on and organize? Well, I mean, how do you organize this? I look at death and I read death not just as the inevitability of a thing. I also read death as the ticking clock. It's just the notion that things are going to move forward regardless. So when I see this and I say, what else, what do I need to really organize? I think I just need to organize myself around what are those things that are the eventuals and the inevitables, the things that are coming. So what do I know that's coming? Fall is coming. What do I need to prepare for? I need to prepare for, we're coming up to our big, you know, we have rituals coming up. Mabon, we've got
Samhain coming.
Samhain, we've
Yeah,
got, I need to get my head wrapped around what's coming up. So when I look at this and say, what do I need to organize on? I really just need to get myself organized in the things that are those things that I know are happening, not just in my own spiritual practice, but in my day-to-day life as well. I need
yeah.
to organize around that.
Okay, all right. And I've got the Emperor.
Mm, two
And
majors
whenever
this
whenever
time.
I see this card, I don't care how other people see it. I always see it as um,
Excuse me.
someone who takes care of um, I don't know, generational wealth, protecting what they've got, investments that they've got going,
Mm,
making sure they have their eye on the future and things that they want to go forward thinking, but they've got their eyes on all the things that they have. They want to make sure it's kept protective and growing,
mhm,
kind of a thing.
mhm.
And so I always see that, that knight that's sitting there, he's keeping an eye on his wealth at the same
Yep,
time, but he's like looking at his investments and then his family and the grounding and the stabilization, all of that combined. So I'm
yep,
seeing it like that, and I'm kind of going, I want to organize around that. I want to start making my way with doing the things I have to do to look out for that generational wealth or whatever it is. I've just been seeing a lot of that lately, and I kind of
yeah.
fall within that same theme.
No,
Right.
that's powerful stuff. That makes sense. That does
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
make sense.
yeah. So
So
next week our guest
we're
will be Janet Callahan, and
yay, who you all just met.
yeah, we're gonna have her with us to go through a Q&A. And tonight we want to say thank you again to all of those in the chat and to Edward Sott, Reverend Edward Sott, Janet Callahan, Reverend Phoenix Coffin-Williams, and Kenya T. Koviak. And we want to
Yeah.
thank them all for their insights, their thoughts, and the words that they shared with us tonight.
Yes.
And again, and Rhonda, what else should they do?
Please like, subscribe, and share. We really
Yay.
appreciate it. Thank you guys so
Yes.
much for joining us. Thank you for your comments in the chat. We appreciate all of that. Thank
Yes.
you again, huge to our panel. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Have a great night, everyone.